Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Maxi here once again, and I am from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Donkey Kong 64 for the Nintendo 64. So, last time, we've essentially somehow managed able to continue exploring through Crystal Caves by not only done quite a lot of mission objectives from here, but also say applies with the forms of the second most annoying race in the game. You know what I mean with the forms of the harder slide segment. You know, with the forms of race against with the Beetle. With, you know what I mean, with Lanky Kong and stuff like that. But ultimately speaking, no, we did this alright. So today, for this video, is the fact that not only we can able to actually wrap things up through everything in terms of Crystal Caves, but also, relatively speaking, we can take on the next boss in the game, and afterwards though, we can probably hit back into Fungi Forest for the sake of the final mission on that particular world, because now we've actually learned, you know what I mean, orangutan sprint for Lanky Kong, so that means we can now able to actually race against with that particular rabbit for reals, so relatively speaking though, we'll save that until for later. So for now, we're able to actually focusing on the forms of the igloo challenges. Now, we've already done one from the likes of in the last video with Chunky Kong by, relatively speaking, saving the rabbit, of course. But either way, now let's go ahead and deal with Diddy Kong's igloo challenge, where in this one you have to able to pick up certain barrels and find the corresponding number order, ranging from 1 all the way up to 6. So, but relatively speaking, it's actually pretty easy when you're able to actually memorize the actual number pads was actually located. So, and once you're done with that, then the golden banana is now yours to obtain. So, relatively speaking, and I see there's another banana balloon up there. So we're now on 157 bananas. So we're almost there, folks. We are, naturally speaking, I think we actually now on to the third quarter of the game right now, when it comes to able to obtain certain golden bananas, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, we're definitely getting there, folks. We are slowly getting there. So, anyways, let's go ahead and pop this banana balloon before we move on to the next igloo section. So, even though I keep on missing some specific shots until when I finally managed to get it. So, either way, everything else will be pretty much accounted for around here, aside from those crystal coconuts to obtain. But that's alright for me, I guess. So, either way, let's just get out of here. And something tells me about the fact that if the actual time is up, I'm pretty sure the "get out" voice will appear, and you have to get out of the igloo before you die. So, yeah, you have to be super quick about it. So anyways, let's go ahead and switch over to Lanky Kong to do the next igloo section. Now originally, I was expecting to able to focusing on Donkey Kong's first for this video, but I think I should probably save him for last, because out of all the actual igloo challenges in this particular world, I think Donkey Kong's is by far the hardest of the bunch, because of the forms of that particular main mechanic of that particular, you know, the igloo challenge for Donkey Kong. So yeah, basically in Lanky Kong's challenge, as you can tell, we need to climb ourselves all the way up to the top. Well, it's actually pretty simple, really. Although, aside from the fact that, as you can tell, I'm actually doing a bit of a sequence breaking, which is not supposed to be meant to be happening, but relatively speaking, what the game expects us to do is that we have to take care of the enemies until the actual Lanky Kong's icon pad will show up in the bottom of that particular portion. So, but either way, no need to deal with all that. Well, aside from the fact that there's no way we can get out, aside from the fact that we do need to take care of the enemies first. So, but before we do that, let's go and pop this another banana balloon, and I think we've only got 3 blue bananas left for Lanky Kong before he's actually done with the forms of collecting, well, regular small bananas for Lanky Kong. So, yeah, as far as you probably already know, is about the fact that, well, today's day is, of course, is the 15th of February today, in this case in 2023 today. Naturally speaking, we're now on to the halfway point in terms of February in this year in 2023, before we move on to March, which, again, I should probably do some more conversation about the forms of the actual Nintendo Direct announcements until later, because obviously I need to focusing on the forms of trying to dish out as many of those enemies as I could. So, either way, once you clear all these enemies out, then basically the actual Lanky Kong pad now shows up, and in addition to that, we can now able to actually get out of here. So, and I think we're basically done here. So, And I suppose the next Kong we should probably use next, and that's what appears to be Tiny Kong. Because as I said before, I'll save Donkey Kong for last, just because of the forms of how difficult that can be. So, either way, let's just go ahead and swim ourselves into the igloo again. So relatively speaking though, we're able to well, every time whenever you go into the forms of the igloo, well basically though, you always have to make sure you need to activate the actual instrument, just to ensure you will able to get its entry for the sake of, well, you know what I mean, just able to actually do one of the challenges. So, and I think in this particular Tiny Kong's challenge in here, is that we have to once again break the targets. And except the fact the matter is though, what makes this one a little bit tricky than the forms of how it does it on, well, let's just say in one of those cavern sections for Chunky Kong, is that, well, thankfully you don't need to worry about the forms of the stealth section. So relatively speaking, we now need to rely on that particular enemy, or should I say a very dangerous enemy to deal with, because otherwise, if you get hit, then you obviously lose a half of your health. So, yeah, you have to be very careful not to get hit by this guy so many times, especially noticeable. It does have a very, very big range for that attack, but either way though, I think something tells me I'm miles well able to fail this challenge, because I didn't seem to able to get enough time to able to actually break that particular target. So, oh well, no big deal, but at the very least though, we can able to get out of there again. So, and yeah, since the time is up, so that means, you know what that means?
Get out.
We have to get out of here before we die. So, yeah. Well, thankfully, though, we can simply go back in here if you want to try again. So, relatively speaking, though, it's definitely a little bit tricky. So, but nothing compared to the forms of how it does it on the Donkey Kong's igloo section challenge. So, but then again, though, we'll save that until for later. So, anyway, so let's try this again. So, either way, there's another announcement they did show up during the forms of the actual Nintendo Direct. That is the fact about the fact that we actually got not one, not two, but 3 different systems, technically, for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online services, which, you know what that means? Not only do we have Game Boy, but also Game Boy Color, which is pretty much the same thing as the original Game Boy, but except the fact you're able to play some exclusive titles on the Game Boy Color. But relatively speaking, there's also the Game Boy Advance games as well. That, relatively speaking though, is actually gonna get, well, a lot more cooler than I thought it was. Because I know for the fact that, well, despite the Wii U eShop is about to be, dead around the corner, to be more specifically though, until next month anyway though, that, relatively speaking though, it kind of sucks to able to see that eShop application to be going away. Well, at the very least though, luckily, unlike in the forms of how it does it on the Wii U Virtual Console re-releases of certain Game Boy Advance titles, well, thankfully there is actually local play and online play for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance titles here and there. And I'll get to more details about the forms of which specific games they've got at the moment. Well, I've already mentioned about the forms of other, details before. Like, I'm super pleased to see that Summer de Amigo is finally returned after 15 years since on the Wii. And, short things worth noting for is about the fact that until 2 days' time, that Tales of Symphonia Remastered is actually getting its release for the Nintendo Switch. So, along with any other multiple platforms as well. So, and also something's worth noting for is about the fact that you guys even remember that I mentioned this before, ever since in the last video, that the game called Illusion Island that I've already mentioned about. Apparently though, that game is going to be released a day after, let's just say, Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch version. So, pretty weird able to actually have that particular release date right next to the forms of, well, you know what I mean with the forms of Illusion Island, I'm sure enough. So, anyway, so now we're done with Tiny Kong, so now let's go ahead and move on to Donkey Kong, which, as I said, we'll save him for last, until now. Because obviously, like I mentioned this before, out of all the actual igloo challenges throughout the entire world, Donkey Kong's is by far the hardest. Clearly because of the forms of that particular, the main mechanic of that particular challenge that we'll get into right now. So of course, as always, we need to be able to activate the bongos before we get inside, so let's see what's inside. In addition to able to getting ourselves some even more bananas potentially, so here it is, there's the golden banana right there, right? So, seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, it kind of isn't, because as soon as you're able to actually get through for this particular very dangerous maze. Well, as soon as you get in, it starts to revolving, which this means it actually decides to rotate. Now, as you can tell, every time you get hit by the side of the front of that particular rotating icy maze, you lose a whole melon. So, as a result, you will die a lot of times in this particular icy maze because, well, if you're not paying attention, well, you have to start all over again for this particular maze. Well, thankfully you respawned into the actual entrance to this room, but relatively speaking, this is definitely one of the most trickier missions in the game, especially noticeable if you mess up with your movements, then not only does it give you a bit of a knockback, but also it just drains a lot of your health. Like, that is simply the most dangerous part about the Fungi igloo challenges, I'm sure enough. But thankfully though, it actually took me 2 tries, or 2 attempts rather, so 160 golden bananas so far, so looking good so far. But before we die, I need to pop this banana bloom before we get out of here, so hopefully we'll try to able to get some good shots here if I decided to. There we go. And I think we actually got every single small bananas in Crystal Caves now. So yeah, we'll just instantly go into this transition with that DK's icon spinning thing. So either way, I think that pretty much takes care of the rest of the Fungi igloo. So yeah, let me double check on the the actual status for every single small bananas to obtain, as well as the banana medals and golden bananas and blueprints. Yep, I think we should be all sorted. So all you need to do now is about the fact that, oh, and also those banana fairies we've already captured some pictures of. So all we need to do now is about the fact that we'll meet up with Snide, able to deliver those blueprints to him, and also we'll deal with the next boss in the game. So, and this is where the point about the fact that collecting more small bananas is actually mandatory if you want to get certain progression throughout the game. So relatively speaking, now that seems kind of obvious when if you move on to the future worlds to come. But either way, though, that's saying something. So anyway, so yeah, speaking of the forms of the Nintendo Switch online services with both Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, I'm pretty sure that those 3, well actually technically 2 services in mind, that they both came out in exactly the same day, as in the 9th of February. So it's been like, well, let's say about a week ago almost. Now, in terms of the forms of the games library they've somehow got, in terms of the Game Boy Nintendo Switch Online, thankfully though, it's not on the forms of the expansion pack, unlike the forms of how it does it on the Game Boy Advance, which I'm sure enough, much like the Nintendo 64 and the Sega Mega Drive, it's gonna be on the expansion pack, so I was not expecting that. But regardless of such though, about the fact the matter is though, like I said before, that unlike the Wii U Virtual Console re-released versions of the Game Boy Advance titles, that at the very least you can now able to actually access to multiplayer, which means, do you guys even remember in our Let's Play of Mario Kart Super Circuit that we couldn't able to actually access to battle mode? Because obviously that in a Wii U Virtual Console re-release version actually has a lack of, the Game Boy Advance cable link system. So now we can able to actually do it on the Nintendo Switch, either on local or online play. So that's actually relatively a good news. So aside from the fact that you have to go for a pretty expensive price tag. Well, the good news about the adding some more game console services during that point, thankfully the prices does not increase at all, so it stays the same. So that's actually a good start. And especially noticeable about the fact that in terms of the games library they've got at the moment, for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color, they did somehow reveal 9 games so far for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color, and those are Tetris, which is obvious, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, which I wasn't exactly sure why they somehow skipped over Super Mario Land, but hopefully they will add it in that until in the future time. And next they added in is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, despite the fact that we've already got the Nintendo Switch remake back in 2019. So generally speaking, we're now having 2 versions of Link's Awakening on the exact same system. So pretty crazy kind of thing about it. Oh, I just realized I actually got 2 golden bananas for Lanky Kong for delivering blueprints. I'm guessing it's probably because of the forms of the overworld in DK Isles, so I guess that makes it pretty much sense. And relatively speaking, there's also Gargoyle's Quest, which I think it's more likely is like the same exact developer as in Ghosts and Goblins, I'm pretty sure. But either way, though, I haven't really paid attention to that particular gameplay footage of Gargoyle's Quest. But there's also Game & Watch Gallery 3, despite the fact that Game & Watch Gallery 1 and 2 wasn't even on there yet. But hopefully they'll add those eventually. Next game they added in is Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, which I'm not exactly sure they come up with this choice. And also they added in Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, which it was alright. I mean, usually, relatively speaking, though, I've heard from plenty of people prefer the remake of Metroid 2 more, because about the fact that they've managed to fix a lot of improvements, I'm presuming so. And also they added in Warrior Land 3 for the Game Boy Color. Not exactly sure why they skipped over not only Warrior Land, Super Mario Land 3, but eventually they'll add it in throughout the entire year or something. But also Warrior Land 2, so yeah, I'm not exactly sure why they haven't added those yet. And finally, with the forms of Kirby's Dream Land, you know, the one that started it all in terms of the Kirby games. So yeah, it's a pretty cool choice, kind of think about it. All it needs now is just Kirby's Dream Land 2, and that'll be good to go for certain Kirby games for, you know what I mean, Nintendo Switch Online services or something like that. So aside from a few exceptions. So anyways though, now we've actually done with the blueprints for now on, so we'll go ahead and take on the next boss. So, and as far as I'm aware, let me just double check on the status quickly before we're able to actually continue. So, yep, it looks like we've done everything in Crystal Caves aside from the boss fight. So, anywho, in terms of these upcoming games that are able to be revealed for Game Boy/Game Boy Color, oh, and by the way, in order to actually access the next boss, you need to feed this hippo fella for about 350. So, yeah, this is what I mean about the fact that collecting small bananas is now essential into any forms of the future worlds to come. Well, at least potentially speaking though, we're actually getting very, very, very close towards the end of the game right now. Well, mind you, we still got a whole ways to go. So either way, let's just go ahead and switch over to Lanky Kong quickly. So able to feed 100 more, you know, blue bananas potentially. So, anyway, in terms of the upcoming titles they're about to be able to eventually release, not only do we able to actually hopefully try to get not one, but 2 Zelda games for the Game Boy Color, which there are The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons. So, I think generally speaking, sadly, the remake is probably not going to happen for Oracle of Ages and Seasons, sadly. Although, I would have liked to, but it's just about the fact that it might be something to do with some complications for, like, well, doing 2 separate installments or something, or 2 of the same games or something, even though I haven't really paid attention to the forms of rumors and leaks, because, you know, I'm just getting sick of rumors and leaks, so. But that's just me. But, there's also, Pokemon trading card game, which I'm guessing that the reason why that exists, because of the forms of the multiplayer aspect, I'm pretty sure. But there was one particular game, it did somehow caught me off guard, that I was really looking forward to, especially noticeable. Well, I have managed to test the game out on the actual Game Boy emulator, but it doesn't go all well enough on the PC. But potentially speaking, there is that one game I'm really looking forward to trying out for reals once that comes out. That's what appears to be Kirby's Tilt and Tumble, which I was not expecting to see that's been included, but apparently though, well, it now exists. Especially noticeable, maybe potentially we're able to try to do that Let's Play in the future. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to decide it to, but I'm guessing they might as well able to try to utilize the actual motion controls or gyro controls for, I don't know, two of those Joy-Cons potentially. But either way, I'll sure find out and see what happens there. Oh, looks like there's going to be a bit of a construction going on around here. Oh, wait a minute. You look familiar. Oh my god, it's Army Dillo. He's back again. So yeah, just like the forms of how it does it on Fungi Forest, we actually had to come across into ourselves our familiar boss ever since in journey forms of, well, I think potentially the last time we actually fight against with Army Dillo was back in Igloo Caves. Except the fact that this boss is actually a little bit difficult this time around though. I'm guessing it's probably because he has some more tricks up in his sleeve. So, but relatively speaking though, once you get the hang of this though, especially noticeable if you play as Donkey Kong, much like the forms of how he does it in Jungle Japes, then you should probably deal with this well enough. So, anyway, because I was not expecting to see, you know, Kirby's Tilt and Tumble is now a thing on the actual surfaces. Whilst thankfully though, I can still able to actually experience certain Game Boy titles on my Nintendo Switch, luckily. And I'm pretty sure the reason why both the Game Boy / Game Boy Color games is now a thing on the Switch, because I'm pretty sure just like the Game Boy Advance stuff on the Wii U, both the Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games will be disappearing on the actual 3DS system, which I guess that makes it a little bit more obvious of why they actually included these. So, anyway, so in terms of the Game Boy Advance stuff, they obviously do have a small little amount of titles, but at the moment, so far anyway, they actually revealed 6 games. So, first off we have is, of course, Mario Kart Super Circuit, so that's the only example of why I mentioned this earlier. And there's also the forms of Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, so, relatively speaking, because that game has been out for 20 years now, since 2003, so pretty cool they're able to have that on the actual Nintendo Switch system. Well, technically it's actually the forms of how the fact that you can able to actually play the game on the go, but the thing is though, like I said before, in order to able to play Game Boy Advance games, similar to the forms of the Nintendo 64 stuff, and the Sega Mega Drive stuff, or Sega Genesis for those of you who lived in North America, you have to purchase the expansion pack with it. So, kind of unfortunate, but at least there might be some consumption, so. Anyway, and the next game they did include is The Legend of Zelda Diminish Cap, so that's actually a good choice. And as far as the rest of it goes, well, we actually got ourselves WarioWare Inc. Minigame Mania, so we now actually got about roughly 2 WarioWare games on the actual Switch system, so that's actually pretty good. And in addition to that, there's also Korean, which I think is actually a game that is actually only exclusive to not only in Japan, but also in European countries as well. So relatively speaking, that game is actually going to be the first time ever that North Americans can finally able to actually experience the game for reals. So, pretty cool, huh? And finally, in terms of the actual games they've got at the moment, and that is actually very surprising because they somehow revealed Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3 with e-reader levels pre-installed. So it's very similar to the forms of how it does it on the Wii U, that relatively speaking though, you can able to try out the e-reader levels for that too. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Now in terms of the upcoming titles they're able to be revealed, and currently speaking though, they only added in 5 at the moment, but hopefully they'll add it in more in the future. So relatively speaking, the remaining 5 are Golden Sun, so that's actually pretty cool, Fire Emblem, and also F-Zero Maximum Velocity, and also Kirby and Amazing Mirror, so that's actually a pretty good selection for coming up. And finally, Metroid Fusion. So, yeah, all it needs left now in terms of the rest of the 2D Metroid games for this entire Switch lineup is, of course, Metroid Zero Mission. So, and that will be about it in terms of the completed, you know, 2D Metroid games on the Nintendo Switch system. So, well, speaking of Metroid though, well, I'll get some more details on that in a moment, because after all, we did somehow deal with the final hit with Army Dillo for the second match against him. And there goes Army Dillo, and you know what that means? Here's our next DK boss key, so we can able to obtain that. And that basically does it for Crystal Caves, which I will admit though right away, despite there are some flaws of this world, I will say it actually goes by very, very quickly as far as it's concerned. So, yeah, we've done everything on World 6, so yeah, pretty cool and awesome at the same time, despite there are some tricky sections here and there. But either way, let's go ahead and save our game first, and exit off the level as always, with the actual instant of the pulse thing. So, yeah, 166 golden bananas we actually got so far. It's actually pretty good and pretty swell. Now, before you're able to actually move on to the next world, first of all, we need to able to actually access to able to insert... Oh, I forgot about that particular dirt, so we'll just take care of that first. And get ourselves our glorious rainbow banana coin for doing so. So, yeah. And in fact, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day that, which specific games you're able to be hoping to be wished for, in terms of not only Game Boy games, but also Game Boy Color games, and also Game Boy Advance games you would like to see for, the Nintendo Switch online membership services and stuff like that. I would say, personally speaking, I would classify for saying Kirby's Dream Land 2, and also say applies with maybe Donkey Kong Land Trilogy. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but although also I would love to see Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance actually making a comeback on the actual Nintendo Switch. But that's just my theory. But I don't know if they might also able to include Mario Party Advance though, because despite that game has none of those multiplayer elements in my opinion, so... Oh, this is actually interesting. Oh! Also, before we're able to actually go back into Fungi Forest, there is one particular golden banana that I've already accidentally come across into since the beginning of the game. Well, remember that particular orangutan sprint that we've already now learned? Well, basically that's what the actual golden banana in this particular room comes into play. When you're able to activate that switch, you only have about 8 seconds in order to be able to make your way towards that golden banana on the other side. And there you go. That's how you're essentially going to get this. So, there we go. And I'm pretty sure we've almost done with the forms of the DK Isles at this point right now. So, relatively speaking though, we are essentially getting close. So, anyways, speaking of Metroid, there was one thing that really excited me the most. In terms of the forms of the recent Nintendo Direct, and that's what it appears to be, yes, Metroid Prime Remastered exists. Or, usually, what I meant to say, it now exists. So, relatively speaking though, I'm just so looking forward to able to actually get a chance to well, what's even stranger about this is, it did technically came out already, digitally, whilst we still have to wait for the physical release until the 3rd of March 2023, which is roughly the day where the Nintendo Switch will officially become 6 years old. So it applies to 1-2 Switch and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So, oh, and speaking of The Legend of Zelda related, that Tears of the Kingdom got themselves the second trailer, which, my god, is actually a lot more hyped than ever before. Especially now we've actually seen, you know, more gameplay elements, and especially noticeable with how the story is going to be represented. So either way though, we are still looking forward to seeing, you know, Tears of the Kingdom is finally getting around the corner until its release. And I'm pretty sure about the fact the matter is though, luckily though, no release date has been delayed. So it's still relatively, it's going to say it's going to still come out until the 12th of May. So yeah, pretty cool, no delays, which I'm very happy about. Especially any other Zelda fans are so, you know, dying to able to actually, hopefully, we're able to see that game in action. So, anyway, there's another golden banana right there. And I think that pretty much takes care of the forms of the Tiny Kong's selections of bananas. So, and also, short things worth noting for, I noticed there was actually a Chunky Kong's special barrel appeared. Oh, ouch. I was not meant to able to do that. But anyway, and as far as what I've noticed about the fact the matter is though, as to be expected, I'm gonna go for the physical version of Metroid Prime Remastered. So in some cases though, I'm just so happy that that game is now getting its remastered treatment, which I almost first thought it's going to be a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, but it turns out it's going to be only Metroid Prime 1. So, that's okay, because Metroid Prime 1 is one of these considered as to be one of the best Metroid Prime games of all time. So, which, you know, I'll definitely take it. So, either way, that's all I can really say about it. So, I don't know about you, but I'm guessing that particular game does not have amiibo functionality or something like that. But either way, that might be saying something, I suppose. So anyways, in terms of the next thing they did announce, and that's what appears to be a brief sneak peek of the forms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 4. So in some cases though, much like in Wave 3, back in September last year's Nintendo Direct, they've only, although relatively speaking, this time around though, they only shown one track so far, which is actually brand new this time around. So relatively speaking, it did turns out there's going to be a Yoshi's Island themed track. So, and for what I've seen it looks so amazing. And to make matters even better, it actually decides able to include the returning character ever since in both Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii. Which, yes, Bodo, she's now finally making her playable debut once again, ever since in both Mario Kart Double Dash and Mario Kart Wii. So, yeah, welcome back, Bodo. In fact, it's actually very good to hear that Bodo is actually getting its nice returning treatment after the events of not only from Mario Tennis Aces, but also say applies with the forms of, let's just say, Mario Strikers Battle League Football, and also Mario Party Superstars. Well, apart from a couple of exceptions though, on the other hand, which there were obviously Super Mario Party, well, despite she was actually a non-playable character in that game, because all she does, she was actually the host of Question Trivia. So, and also with the forms of Mario Golf Super Rush, because I was expecting she was going to be playable in that game, but unfortunately though, she didn't make the cut, sadly. And finally with the forms of Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, because of the forms of how the fact that, well, I've got no words to add. So, yeah, it's nice to see that Bodo is actually getting its playable character treatments every nowadays. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Especially noticeable that Bodo, she's actually a very cool character. So, yeah, pretty excited. And as far as the release date for that particular wave of DLC and stuff like that, or should I say, Wave 4 in mind, it's going to be expecting to be released at some point in this spring. So it could be either be March or April. I would say April most likely, because it usually takes place in the forms of Easter time. So that might be my guessing for that particular prediction. But as far as I'm aware, they've only, you know, like I said before, they only revealed one track at the moment out of 8. So relatively speaking, hopefully we're able to see some more familiar tracks eventually. So relatively speaking though, because I'm also able to double check on the forms of that particular checklist for certain tracks returning from the likes of the Mario Kart's past, and exponentially though about the fact that, well, despite the fact that unfortunately though, I'm still gonna go back onto Mario Kart Tour once I'm fully ready for, you know, Wave 4. Well, relatively speaking, about the fact that with Mario Kart Tour in mind, that basically that we've already got, you know, Piranha Plant Cove. I can assure you that particular track will eventually come to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I'm guessing it more accurately gonna be like, I don't know, Wave 5 or Wave 6. I'm guessing it's more accurately Wave 5, just the forms of like, I don't know about you, because either way, they haven't exactly paying attention to the rest of the forms of, well, you know what I mean, certain details about Piranha Plant Cove. Well, despite the fact that I just keep on getting myself a massive ownage for that game because of, you know, still bad controls, as well as too much chaotic items here and there, so, but that's just me. And the next game they did revealed, it appears to be by the forms of, let's just say, Dead Cells, with the appears to be by the forms of the return to Castlevania DLC, which, that's actually kind of surprising, despite the fact that I haven't got Dead Cells on my own time, and yeah, that's as far as I can say about it, and that's going to be releasing until the 6th of March, so that's usually around Monday, potentially, so yeah, that's what I can say about it. And the next game they did reveal, it appears to be by the forms of Deca Police, so it's like a Japanese anime police cops video game or something like that. So yeah, that's as far as I can try to describe about it. And the next game they did reveal, which appears to be by the forms of some more updates on Disney Dreamlight Valley, which as a result they did show us a footage of you know, the Lion King Pride Lands environment. So yeah, that's to be expected, especially noticeable. We technically already know that since during the forms of that roadmap DLC free updates or something. So anyways, and as you can tell, we've already got ourselves the next Battle Crown. So I mean, really, whoever needs the more Battle Crowns, well, aside from the fact that I'm still aiming for, you know, 101% in the game. So anyways, let's go ahead and double check on the actual status quickly, just to ensure about the fact that we're able to have a look at the previous worlds that we've 100% everything and done with. So, but either way, and also they've shown us a brief moment in the forms of the actual third-party supportive games recap until when it's releasing. Like, they've still shown us some footage on Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, which it's sure enough it's still going to be releasing until the 14th of April this year. Well, I'm not exactly sure if I'm also hyped on it right now, clearly because about the fact that I'm more into the classic Mega Man games, including Mega Man X games. Oh, and speaking of Mega Man X, that's recently about the fact that Silver, the Hedgehog, he's now doing Mega Man X, just recently yesterday. So, yeah, kudos to able to actually notice about the fact that originally, we were expecting to able to do a ginormous marathon when it comes to tackling through. By the way, I do apologize for that background noise you've been hearing with all that banging and everything. I'm guessing it's most likely because there was actually a bit of a construction going on, so I do apologize for that, folks. So, anyway, we've met again, Mr. Rabbit, ever since in, well, you know what I mean, Crystal Caves. So, yeah, basically, since we've now able to actually have learn the ability to able to run faster, so let's see if we can do this for reals, without any sort of hesitation, so. Now, technically speaking, that you can also deal with the trick where, basically, if you lose the race, if you almost nearly at the end of the finish line, that basically, once you don't skip the actual speech bubble, then basically you jump immediately into the actual special barrel, and that way you can able to actually get yourselves a massive speed boost. So, either way though, I don't think I can probably do that, personally, although I'm also able to try to do that on my own time on the original cartridge version, so. Either way, that's saying something, and there are a few rare occasions where, if you're lucky enough, while the actual rabbit got stuck in the forms of that particular glitch, where if he runs into that Kasplat, then basically you'll also be good to go, but it's just about the fact that most people seem to think that this is one of the dedicated moments where, well, declared as in one of the hardest golden bananas in the game, so, but either way, once you succeed, then obviously you get yourselves the golden banana, so. Nice reward for doing so. Although keep in mind though about the fact that I don't think there's a way you can able to actually retry this race now, because obviously we've simply now done everything in Fungi Forest. So now we've actually done, well, not only we've done Crystal Caves, but also we've finished up everything in Fungi Forest now. So 2 worlds has been completed. So, and I believe we've only got 2 worlds to go. So. But I get the strong feeling that the majority of them has to be by the forms of the King K. Rool's ship fortress. So, but either way, that might be saying something with what's going to be up to come. So, and a good thing I managed to able to land safely on water. So just to ensure I don't do any fall damages around here. So, anyway, so and there are some other announcements here and there too, when it comes to forms of that recent Nintendo Direct. Oh, speaking of such though, speaking of which, in terms of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, they did somehow reveal, much like the forms of how it does it on The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that basically, it actually reveals the Collector's Edition, which obviously it came out during exactly the same day as in the standard version. So basically, the amount of content they've got for the Collector's Edition of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and those are the Collector's Edition box, which is pretty standard stuff, and there's also the game itself, along with the very, very cool steelbook, and there's also the Icon Art steel poster, which, from the look of it, it looks super impressive. And there's also the pin set, which actually includes 4 pins, so that's actually pretty swell. And finally, with the forms of the art book. So, yeah, pretty cool selection of those Collector's Edition items. So, now I highly doubt it might able to actually sell out tremendously though. So, yeah, I wasn't expecting to able to realize that it will sold out tremendously for those pre-order items and stuff like that. So, oh, and short things worth noting for is about the fact, did you guys even remember this particular cartoon show released in 2003 called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cartoon? Well, apparently though, that particular cartoon has been out for 20 years now, so. Now, I'm sort of noticing that, ever since when I was a kid, whenever I do manage to able to fiddle around with Jetix's channel back in the UK during the early 2000s, because I always attempt to watch Sonic X when I was younger. So relatively speaking though, about the fact that, yeah, that particular cartoon has been out for 20 years. So, you know, time flies, you know? Although there's also a moment where about the fact that what I found is a little bit odd about the fact the matter is though, is that apparently though, one of those tweets did show up, which shows us the full image of Buzz Lightyear, and they somehow did say that maybe potentially that the next Toy Story film might be on its way, apparently, which I know for the fact that they did say something like, well, Tim Allen did somehow send the actual tweet message, and he did say this message saying, "See you soon, Woody. You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity." And off we go to a number 5, which, yeah, to infinity and beyond. Could this be anybody forms of the 5th installment will be on its way? Well, it might be a bit of a rumors at the moment right now. I mean, I highly doubt it about the fact that it might actually do exactly the same system as in the forms of the majority of these Ice Age movies, I'm sure enough. But either way though, that's saying something, so... Anyway, so let's get into the forms of this minigame right here, which I know for a fact that we've already technically played this minigame before, except the fact that now we need to hit the actual crab traps for about 10 times, I'm presuming so. And relatively speaking though, we're almost approaching onto the next world. So, I think relatively speaking, the next world is gonna be pretty self-explanatory. Like, I know for a fact that relatively speaking, a lot of people seem to have found the next world to be a little bit more funner than the forms of how it does it on not only Crystal Caves, but also with the forms of Gloomy Galleon as well. So, but even then, we'll talk more details about the forms of the next world as soon as we're able to completely done with this video. But I do know for one thing in mind that we've already come across into ourselves the red hair Splat familiar, because obviously I somehow obtained a blueprint for Diddy Kong. So, and relatively speaking, when it comes to blueprints throughout the whole game, I'm pretty sure we've almost done with this point. So, yeah, we are still, slowly but surely, we are definitely getting very close towards the end of this game, folks. And I think something tells me, in order to be able to actually access to the next world, we do need about roughly 80 golden bananas in order to be able to access to this next world. So, farewell, B Locker. Well, not for the final time anyway, though, because that will be until for later. So, yeah, let me quickly go ahead and switch over to Donkey Kong for a moment, because I think something tells me for the next world, it will show up some yellow bananas, I'm sure enough. So, yeah, we'll go at endings of this point right here, I'm afraid, guys. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong 64, instead we'll move on to the next world, known as Creepy Castle. So I'll see you guys until on Friday. So, later, fellas. Pant, I must get out of here before Fatso discovers that. The Kongs are recovering the blueprints to his stupid machine. Fatso, is it? I'd choose your last words more carefully if you were you. What's that? Who's there? Any last requests? Nearly there. I'm almost safe. I think not. Oh. That could be extremely dangerous for Splat right here.